Chapter 517 to 518. Whyish whyish. Just as Fujin's figure retracted back into the bone spear, with the sound of breaking through wind, several large projectiles with the shape of Obito's Manjikyu Sharingan pattern and a diameter of more than 1 meter came right after it and hit the exact bone spear. The bone spear cut by the large projectile was instantly engulfed in a spiraling whirl and soon disappeared from his time-space, without leaving behind a trace. The momentum of the large projectiles remained unabated, and with a whirling sound, it continues forward, cutting off hundreds of bone spears that too soon disappeared into the Kamui dimension, leaving behind a large empty area in the middle of the bone forest. Boom. Roar. With a loud explosion and a roaring noise, an emerald blue Susanoo suddenly appeared in the area where the bone forest was swallowed by Kamui Shuriken. Tomomask de Mesabito glanced at Hiriko, whose head had been severed from his body, and fell to the ground in a lifeless state. His eyes under his mask were filled with a joking expression as if he was quite happy about the death of Hiriko. If Obito wanted to save Hiriko from Fujin, he had more than enough time and opportunity to be able to do so without much effort, but he chose not to do so because Hiriko is a staunch follower of the Nagato faction in the Akatsuki organization. And because Hiriko's strength is extremely high, only weaker than him and Nagato, so Hiriko's presence is unfavorable for Obito, as it makes controlling Nagato somewhat difficult. Therefore, he has been looking for various opportunities to either change Hiriko's loyalty to Nagato towards him or simply eliminate him to clean a possible future threat. After all, it is only a matter of time before the conflict between him and Nagato broke out. Obito expects the conflict to break out after tonight's destruction of the Konoha, Gakage, and Amatsukami organization because after eliminating these threats the Akatsuki organization would focus their complete attention on the 9 Biju, so as to revive the Jubi. At that time, Nagato would become the last obstacle to Project Tsukinomi because Obito and Nagato's goals are different. Nagato wants to bring peace through fear and destruction, while Obito wants to plunge the world into infinite Tsukiyomi. Since their goals are different, so a civil war is bound to break out. So, eliminating future threats at an early stage is only a matter of course. At this time, Jiraiya, who has already entered the Sannin mode, suddenly jumped out of the bone forest and shouted, "Senpo! Gomen!" Whoosh! On Toad Shima's command, Jiraiya sprayed out a large volume of toad oil, followed by Toad Fukasaku on Jiraiya's right shoulder performing a wind-release jutsu to propel the toad oil, and finally, Toad Shima on Jiraiya's left shoulder performing a fire-release jutsu to heat the wind-propelled toad oil. Within an instant, a superheated inferno burning at 1,000 of degrees was created, lighting up the night sky red. Tomomask de Mesabito frowned, his thoughts moved, and instantly, a pair of wings spread out on the back of his complete body Susanoo, and he flew into the air. Because of the transplantation of Hashirama cells, the Yin chakra and Yang chakra in Obito's body is in a semi-fused state resulting in the Yin-Yang chakra or Rakuto chakra. Therefore, even though the Manjikyu Sharingan in Obito's body is not eternal, because the quality and quantity of his chakra are quite good, and because his visual power continuously returns, so Obito can use the complete body Susanoo with wings on his back after a lot of training, so his Susanoo has the ability to fly. Jiraiya had a dazed expression as he looked at the 100-meter giant flying in the sky. This is the first time he has seen complete body Susanoo and didn't know that Susanoo can also fly, so he is quite taken aback. At this time, Jiraiya's Gomen has already swallowed the bone forest. No matter how tough these bone spears may have been, when incinerated by the oil burning at thousands of degrees, they couldn't resist and started to break apart and evaporate. Crack, crack, click. With constant cracking noise, one after another bone spears that were affected by Gomen turned into dust and evaporated. At this time, Fujin, who was panting, leaned out of one of the bone spears near Jiraiya and looked at him with a speechless expression. No matter how dangerous the Kamui Shuriken may have been, at most they destroyed a very small part of the bone forest, and that too recovered in a flash under Fujin's chakra, but when Jiraiya used his Sage Jutsu, a large part of bone forest simply evaporated without even posing any threat to Obito. On the other hand, if Fujin hadn't hurried to transfer himself away from that area, then he too would have been swallowed by the incinerated toad oil that is burning at thousands of degrees. Jiraiya also seemed to have noticed Fujin's gaze and apologized with an embarrassed expression. Sorry, I didn't expect his to suddenly fly. Jiraiya's move just now was actually a test in order to verify whether this person in front of him, who is using Susanoo, can still make himself intangible or not, and whether he can make the entire Susanoo intangible or not. After all, even if it's Susanoo known for its ultimate defense, resisting Gomen is quite dangerous. So if the person can still make himself intangible while using the Susanoo, or he can make the entire Susanoo intangible, then he would definitely choose to do so and not pose hard resistance to Gomen. It's just that Jiraiya didn't expect that the opponent wouldn't play his cards according to expectations, use a completely different approach, and fly off the ground. Fujin sighed and didn't get too entangled with this small issue. Instead, he turned his head and looked at the place where Hiroko's body was present. At this moment, that area is already a sea of flames. Everything on the ground is burned into char and evaporated by Gomen. Even the rubble was not spared and was evaporated. Fujin doesn't know if Obito has saved Hiroko's body or not, but if he hadn't, then no matter what secret jutsu or kenjutsu Hiroko may have used, his body would have definitely been destroyed. Of course, Fujin is not completely certain whether Hiroko is dead, even if all his life signs have disappeared. After all, Hiroko is capable of using dark medical ninjutsu similar to Yomi of the Land of Demons. And since Fujin has already once learned the lesson from Yomi, so he cannot ascertain Hiroko's death. Not to mention, he didn't see whether Obito has saved Hiroko's body or not because Fujin was busy escaping the Kamui Shuriken and Gomen. Putting aside that thought for now, Fujin looked at Tomomas DMS Obito, who was flying high into the air, and looking at Fujin, Jiraiya, as well as other Konoha shinobi with a condescending look in his eyes. I am quite curious, can your dance of the seedling fern and Sannin mode withstand what's about to come? After speaking so, he didn't wait for any reply, directly dispersed the Susanoo, and disappeared into a spiraling whirl with a burst of mocking laughter echoing all over the village. Jiraiya said with an anxious expression, well, he must have chosen a different target. Jiraiya is self-conscious and understands things quite clearly. If he were in the enemy's shoes, then he would also avoid the enemy's strong fighters and directly attack the weak links in order to disturb the strong ones psychologically. This is only a matter of course, and since Konohagakure is so big, determining the enemy's exact target is quite difficult in such a short time. But Fujin wasn't so worried about who will be Obito's target, because he feels that Obito hasn't left yet. No one in Konoha or other great villages poses a threat to DMS Obito. If there is anyone he is vigilant against, then it is definitely Amatsukami. So, Fujin feels that Obito's move just now was only a deception to hide in the dark to carry out another sneak attack, lest he would be targeted by other Amatsukami members who are hiding in the dark while he is on the bright side. And while Fujin was thinking, the village suddenly became quiet, the explosions, howling and roars of chimera beasts and summon beasts, fierce fighting, along with every other sound seems to have subsided for some reason. Fujin's expression shrank. What's the matter? Why would they retreat all of a sudden? Not only Fujin, even Jiraiya, Tsunade, Kakashi, as well as other Konoha shinobi and Umbu in the surroundings noticed something strange with the sudden silence, because it gave everyone an eerie feeling. Walking out of the ruins, Kurenai looked at Kuroto's shadow clone and asked, the members of the Akatsuki organization have retreated? Kuroto's shadow clone, who was also observing the situation with his Byakugan, was also quite confused and nodded. They seem to have retreated for some reason. It's quite strange. Kakashi said with a solemn expression, I am afraid it's not that simple. Let's be more vigilant. Just as Kakashi spoke, both Fujin standing on top of the bone spear and Kuroto's shadow clone suddenly frowned and looked up into the sky. Feel pain. In the sky, there is a figure floating high above, his position at the center of the village, wearing Akatsuki cloak and his arms outstretched as if doing something. Accept pain. Following Fujin and Kuroto's shadow clone's gaze, one after another everyone turned to look in that direction and spotted the small figure. And no pain. Jiraiya frowned. That is, for some reason, he suddenly had a bad feeling and immediately afterwards, he shouted at everyone no matter what he is doing, he must be stopped. Those who do not know pain will never understand true peace. Fujin shook his head, and while printing hand seals he said, it's too late for you all to stop him. I will do what I can, you all just need to do something to be able to protect yourselves. Fujin's words just fell, and a majestic, yet indifferent voice echoed, and now, this world shall know pain. Shinra, Tensei. Boom 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 boom. Instantly, a huge repulsive force swept through the village, quickly spreading around and affecting everything. In the face of this repulsive force, everything including people, animals, houses, buildings, etc. seems to be like fragile wood and could be crushed unilaterally. Feeling the heavy shockwave, everyone seems to be feeling a sense of disparity. Kakashi looked dull. He had a complex expression that was filled with shock and helplessness. Hate subconsciously rushed towards Hyuga with the hope that he could do something to be able to protect her even if he loses his life while doing so. Kurenai looked at the person suspended in the air, then turned to look at Fujin, who seems to be trying to do something. Kurenai also looked at Kuroto standing next to her and noticed that his eyes were golden at this moment instead of white, and he was also trying to do something. Although curious, she didn't have the time or opportunity to ask anything as she closed her eye with the hope that she wouldn't die. Just as everyone was preparing to meet the impact, an endless iron sand curtain suddenly unfolded above the sky of Konoha. Looking from the sky high above, the iron sand curtain seems to be a black mattress that covered the entire village and seems to be trying to resist the repulsive force that swept over the whole village. The lamp above the head flickered and dimmed, making bursts of contact noises. Cough cough, Hinata was like a cat, with a dusty face, coughed slightly, then looked at the surroundings with a dazed expression. Please someone save me. It hurts. I want Okasan. I want my Okasan. At this time, several strong and weak cries filled with intermittent moans and painful wailing were coming from all corners of the refugee shelter, overlapping each other and causing the refugee to fall into a painful and sorrowful state. Hinata looked around, and her eyes were dim. She doesn't seem to be able to see or understand what exactly happened all of a sudden. The long rows of tube lights on the dome of the refugee shelter had already been broken for some reason, and the few remaining lights were also flickering and dimming due to the damage in the power system. Dust and rubble are constantly falling from the roof, so the entire refugee seems to be covered in smoke and dust, making it very hard to see even 3 or 4 meters ahead. While Hinata was unresponsive to the situation, suddenly a figure rushed towards her, and while shaking her shoulder, he asked, "Hey, are you hurt somewhere?" Hearing the familiar voice, Hinata's eyes gained focus. She was able to clearly see the figure in front of her and replied, "Naruto-kun? I am not injured, but I am unable to get up because of those rocks."
"Oh, all right then.
I will remove these rocks." After nodding lightly, Naruto removed the rocks on the side and helped Hinata get up. As Hinata got up, she noticed that her sister Hanabi is also next to her, although Hanabi seems to have lost consciousness. After making sure that Hanabi was not injured, Hinata discovered Cheyenne, who was originally sitting beside her, was buried in the rocks.
Ah.
Cheyenne-chan. With an exclaim, she with the help of Naruto removed the rocks. It didn't take long for the 2 little guys to clear up the rocks and found that Cheyenne wasn't the only one buried under the rocks. Apart from Cheyenne, Teruho was also present, and it seemed as if Teruho had protected Cheyenne with his own body. After rescuing Cheyenne and Teruho, Hinata asked with a concerned expression, "Are you alright?" Teruho nodded weakly. To be honest, he was actually prepared to die. After all, Cheyenne had actually foretold his death, but it seems that something has changed. Anyhow, he is alive, and although he is injured, his injuries are not too severe, and there doesn't seem to be any immediate danger to his life. On the other hand, Cheyenne, who had also been rescued, seems to be crying. She is very scared at this moment. The tragic scenes she saw in the prophecy seemed to be fulfilling one after another. Both Naruto and Hinata were at a loss for how to help Cheyenne. Even Teruho didn't know what to do. "Hinata-sama, Hanabi-san." At this moment, Hyuga Natsu, Hanabi's caretaker, also found them and checked their state. Not far away, Sasuke's mother carried the unconscious Kiyomi and looked at the shocking scene. Her face was heavy and painful, and she said to Sasuke standing beside her, "Sasuke, you go and help the others." Although Sasuke is only 7 years old, in the shinobi world, this age is already considered old enough to be on the battlefield fighting in the wars. In the Third Great Shinobi War, many children under the age of 8 participated in the war, not to mention her older son Itachi, who witnessed the cruelty of war at the age of 4. So in the eyes of Mikoto, Sasuke is not just her son, but also a shinobi. Looking at the bleeding leg of his mother, and unconscious Kiyomi carried by her mother, Sasuke hesitated. "But Okasan, your leg and Kiyomi?" "Kiyomi-chan is just unconscious and nothing more. As for me, such a small injury is not enough to hinder me, so you don't have to worry about the 2 of us." As she said, Mikoto activated her 3-tomo Sharingan and said while gently rubbing Sasuke's head, "Don't forget, Sasuke, I am also a Jonin." Sasuke no longer hesitated. He stood up and shouted to Naruto, who was not far away, "Naruto, come with me. Let's save the others." "Oh, got it, Sasuke." Naruto nodded hastily. While Naruto was about to go with Sasuke, Hinata whispered in a low tone, "Naruto-kun, can I also come with you?" I have to be a Kugen. It will be easier to find the others." Sasuke walked over, looked up and down at Hinata, and then said, "You can follow, but you have to act smartly, and not hinder us." Hinata nodded hastily, "Yes, thank you, Sasuke-kun." After saying so, she turned towards Natsu and said, "Natsu-san, please take care of Hanabi-chan and Cheyenne-chan. I am going to help others with Naruto-kun and Sasuke-kun." Then immediately followed Sasuke and Naruto, without waiting for Natsu's reply. "Huh? Wait, Hinata-sama." Natsu wanted to stop Hinata, but by the time she had reacted, Hinata had already walked away with Sasuke and Naruto. "Oh, what am I going to do now?" If something were to happen to Hinata-sama, at the same time, Mikoto, along with the other shinobi present at the refugee shelter, also started to carry out the search and rescue operation, while also reinforcing the walls of the refugee shelter in order to ensure the safety of the villagers. On the other side, 3 little guys walked through the refugee shelter. Although the entire shelter was filled with dust and smoke and rubble, finding and rescuing Konoha villagers buried under rocks was very difficult because of Hinata's Byakugan, coupled with Sasuke and Naruto's combined efforts. After a while, They came to a large cavernous boulder that seems to have blocked the passage. Looking at the completely collapsed passage in front of her, Hinata can't help but mutter in worry. Why is this happening? Why did the refugee shelter collapse all of a sudden? Naturally, Naruto couldn't answer. He doesn't really have much of an understanding of what exactly is going on. So instead of thinking about this problem, he stepped forward, tried to push away the boulder blocking the passage, and found that he couldn't move the boulder at all. Of course, Sasuke is different from Naruto. He thought about it a little and said casually, "This refugee shelter is tens of meters underground. Even if there is a very big explosion on the surface, it should not affect here." Naruto said with a smirk, "Then why have so many places collapsed at this refugee shelter?" Sasuke obviously didn't have the answer, and said angrily, "How do I know? But something very big must have happened on the surface for its impact to have even reached here." Hinata said with a worried tone, "I don't know how my Oda-sama and Sensei are now." Listening to Hinata, even Sasuke also became faintly worried, but he soon reassured himself. "Humph. My Ota-san is the patriarch of the Uchiha clan as well as the captain of the Konoha military police force. He must be fine." While Hinata and Sasuke were busy in their thoughts, there was suddenly a sound of hurried footsteps getting closer and closer. The three little guys looked in the direction of the hurried footsteps and soon recognized the identity of the person coming over. Sasuke said, "It's you? Hyuga Niji." Niji nodded at the few people in front of him, then immediately said to Hinata, "Hinata-sama, you shouldn't run around at this place, it could be dangerous. Natsu-san is worried about you." Hinata bowed her head and apologized. "I just wanted to help Naruto-kun and Sasuke-kun in rescuing the others. Please forgive me, Niji and I-san." Listening to the discussion between Niji and Hinata, Naruto frowned. They are both quite weird. Why do they refer to each other in this way? Sasuke crossed his arms over his chest and explained to Naruto, "Hyuga Niji and Hinata are from the Hyuga clan. Although they are from the same clan, Hinata is from the main family, not to mention she is the eldest daughter of the patriarch of the Hyuga clan, which means that Hinata is going to be the next patriarch of the entire Hyuga clan, so her status is equivalent to my Nisan in the Uchiha clan. On the other hand, Niji is just a member of the branch family of the Hyuga clan and is responsible for the protection of Hinata. Although the two of them are cousins, there is a stark difference in their status. Hinata is the master in the Hyuga clan, while Hyuga Niji is just a retainer who is responsible for the protection of the main family." Naruto muttered in confusion, "I don't understand. Obviously both of them are relatives of similar age. So why are they divided into masters and retainers? It's really confusing." Sasuke glanced at Naruto and said in a disdainful tone, "Idiot Naruto, in major shinobi clans like that of Uchiha and the Hyuga there are various rules and traditions, and we have to uphold those rules and traditions." Listening to Sasuke and Naruto discussing the status difference between the main family and the branch family of the Hyuga clan, in front of them Niji was embarrassed. As he grew older, Niji gradually understood the difference between the main family and the branch family and also understands his role as a member of the branch family. He is not disgusted with the idea of protecting Hinata, but what Niji truly hopes is to be able to protect Hinata as an older brother protecting his younger sister, rather than a member of the branch family protecting a member of the main family. At this moment, Niji suddenly shouted, "Everyone move aside," and subconsciously pulled Hinata backwards. With Niji's warning, Sasuke and Naruto also reacted and moved away.
Boom.
Not long after the four children retreated, the huge boulder blocking the passage was blown up. After dodging the rocks that came in their direction, the four children saw through the breach in the passage and found that on the other end of the passage, several Konoha shinobi were fighting fiercely against a shinobi wearing the traditional Akatsuki cloak. Looking at them, Niji and Hinata quickly recognized the identity of one of the Konoha shinobi and exclaimed, "That's Yui-sensei." Yui-sen.